When I was in my pastoral care training, we were under the supervision of the Rabbi Sarah Baruch at Cedars-Sinai Hospital in Beverly Hills. In my cohort of about 17, I was one of 4 people who wasn't Catholic or Jewish, one of 2 who did not strictly believe in the Abrahamic God, and the only Unitarian Universalist. One of my formative moments in the in-class work, this time without patience, was being asked to bring a spiritually important object to class and to talk about it. So I brought my manifestation mug, which is a really lovely black stoneware with gold paint of the phases of the moon. I make my coffee in this every day, I told them, walking through my careful step-by-step process, my silent chants to myself, asking the universe for whatever I required assistance in. And it works, I said. I always get the help I need. I was met with utter silence, but no shortage of grins. Hey, Casey, one of my classmates, knowing full well my fairly atheistic beliefs at the time, smiled. You know, that's prayer, right? That's the same as the rest of us praying. And I was absolutely flabbergasted. I was so caught up in what I thought was the exceptionalism of Unitarian Universalism that I didn't realize where there were similarities in the practices and beliefs of these other faiths. I was just sharing what felt authentically spiritual to me and had been accepted as a part of my faith exploration by my minister, Reverend Dr. Jason Cook, and all of my friends at my home congregation in Fullerton. It honestly had never occurred to me before that moment that there was anything of my practice of what I consider witchcraft that could have been even remotely the same as any of theirs. I think part of this came from a fundamental misunderstanding of this faith. What I knew best at the time was that I didn't have to believe in God or take communion or follow what felt to me to be the arbitrary rules a bunch of old dudes had written a few thousand years ago. I would affectionately tell people, and sometimes still do, that Unitarian Universalists are basically religion's answer to the island of the misfit toys, because you can believe whatever you want. But that's not actually true at all. I recall a former congregant of mine telling my internship supervisor as much, and he bristled, rightfully so, as a born and raised UU. Because you know what you can't believe in? You cannot call yourself a UU if you believe your beliefs are better or more correct than someone else's. You cannot call yourself a UU if you think less of a person for the color of their skin, the person they love, the place they hail from, or the gods they follow or don't follow. You cannot call yourself a UU if you require someone to follow the same rituals or traditions you do. But that's a whole lot of can't do's, and I'm far less interested in what doesn't make a UU than what does. So let's go back. Historically speaking, Unitarians and Universalists can be summed up as follows. Unitarians reject the idea of the Holy Trinity, believing God created the world and Jesus was a human man inspired by God, but not of equal power. Jesus is the ideal model of human behavior, and Unitarian belief is guided as much by reason and thought as by faith and belief. The New England elites of the 1800s often counted Unitarians among them as leaders in entrepreneurship and the free market. Traditionally exceptionally well educated, many have been proponents of positive social change, though notably not necessarily at the expense of their own comfort. I firmly believe this is one of the reasons humanists, atheists, and agnostics can find a home amongst our congregations. Universalists believe wholeheartedly in the salvation and reconciliation of all through God's love. The belief that there is nothing so horrible or irredeemable about any of us humans that we will not be saved. Simply put, Humans are loved by God because we are humans, and that in and of itself is enough. Though there's a distinction between universalism and ultra-universalism, which is to say, some universalists believe sin has consequences, but ultra-universalists like Hosea Ballou disagreed. I truly believe that this universalist heritage is what guides us to what we now believe is love at the center. The American Unitarian Association and the Universalist Church of America merged in 1961, creating what we now know as the Unitarian Universalist Association, with more than 1,000 congregations worldwide. There are almost 150,000 members in congregations stateside, and more than 800,000 people across the globe identify as Unitarian, Universalist, or Unitarian Universalist. The beliefs of this faith have changed a lot since 1961, and a traditional belief that has made its way for more curiosity and exploration into other faiths, such as Buddhism, Taoism, and paganism. One can be both Muslim and UU, or a practicing Jew and a UU. Indeed, some of our ministers hold multiple religious identities and find the multitudes help grow one another rather than hinder. You can also be a UU and staunchly atheist. There is space for all of these beliefs because one of the most important tenets of this faith is that we are not only encouraged to explore spirituality, but we are meant to support each other on those journeys, exploring truth and reason for ourselves in community together. As a 28-year-old atheist who desperately needed to be held in the pain and beauty of life and death when I was invited to UUism, that was entirely unheard of for me. Now, as a 35-year-old minister who has relished the exploration of what could be, who really, honestly, genuinely hopes we go somewhere after death, because I really do hope to see my beloveds who have preceded me in death, I still find this faith particularly exceptional. I can have these beliefs without being expected to do penance, without having to pray to a God I'm not even sure exists. But I can also explore these wonderings safely and holistically because there is no expectation of what is or is not. Except there is some expectation around behavior, and I think that's the part of the sauce where I really find love for this faith as a communal force, not just the individual searching. See, we don't believe in a particular doctrine, but it is our responsibility to create a sort of heaven on earth, and we do that through relationship. We are born in some ways from the congregational church. This is where we get our history of covenanting, where we tell people loudly and proudly that we are not forced to make a community together, but we choose to do so freely, embracing all of our individual gifts and beliefs. There's a term you may have heard floating around in the last few years: 21st Century Unitarian Universalist, and that is a title that I claim proudly. What that means is because UUs believe in the inherent worth and dignity of all beings, not just the ones who think and act like us, we have felt a strong pull towards social justice work, and this has been historically true. It's no mistake that we have abolitionists and civil rights activists in our ancestry, and the 21st century UU lens leans heavily into the understanding that this world is unfair. We recognize the history of colonialism, white supremacy, patriarchy, and capitalism. We know that those have baked certain hierarchies into our society, and it is our mission to smash them to bits, working to create a more equitable, just, loving society. When we start talking about anti-racism and anti-oppression work, it's not like it's a new discovery, but rather it's building on the work of those who came before us. in this modern civil rights era. Now, not all UUs like this. Not all UUs want to see this work done. They are fine to continue to uphold the status quo. I do not think this is the case for most UUs. I think at the heart of this faith, we truly live with love at the center. And because we love our siblings on this earth, we are drawn to seeing better and doing better. That could be as simple as working towards understanding why and how there are changes in language, even if we don't understand them right away. That could look like putting our bodies on the line in a protest. It could be the act of speaking out when you hear a racist joke or calling in a family member who's been transphobic. Just the act of saying, I disagree when someone is openly problematic is a move in the direction for justice. So yes, Unitarian Universalism is as much about what we aren't as what we are. About 20 years ago, the elevator pitch became a big part of this faith, where UUs were encouraged to come up with a way to explain who we are and what we believe in the amount of time it might take to ride an elevator. I've been in a course all year with the UUA about interim ministry, and we spent a week in Alabama going through a lot of the civil rights movement. And I spent a lot of time thinking about my elevator speech that week. I'm not entirely satisfied with it, and I'm sure it will continue to grow and change as my faith and my ministry do, and as a UU, and as I change as a minister. But here's my best go of it. The modern Unitarian Universalist believes that every individual has the right to explore spirituality and religion for themselves, free from the constraints of dogma or doctrine. We believe all beings are beloved and are worthy just because they are. We believe in a future where all are treated equitably, but we recognize the inequalities of this world and seek to tear down the structures that uphold them. At the center of it all, there is love. Love for our world, love for each other, and love for ourselves. I never really cared about religion growing up, but I've got to say, these days, I'm pretty proud to call myself a Unitarian Universalist. And I hope you are too. So may it be, and amen.